Welcome back to another episode of Treknicity, the show where we explore all of the things that make up that wonderful fandom that is part of our DNA, Star Trek. We're your hosts. I'm Lars.
New Worlds. And I'm Brandon.
In this episode, we are going to recap the Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1, Episode 9 episode, All Those Who Wonder. Before we get started, of course, we're going to give you the standard warning and disclaimer that this episode will be full of spoilers because we will be talking unbiased. Well, no, that's not right. Not it is. It is completely biased. What are we talking about? Unadulterated. How about that?
Yeah, there you go.
Yep. And we're not going to overlook any nook or cranny, and we're going to talk openly about things that happened in this episode. So if you have not watched this episode of Strange New Worlds, please stop what you're doing, go watch it, come back.
Yeah, because shame on you.
That's
what
right.
Are you doing?
Yeah, like you'd wait till like Monday or Tuesday to watch it.
Oops.
Yeah, that's what having a life means. But anyways, before we get started in earnest, we'd like to pay it forward, give it a little bit of love, pay some karma, and all that good stuff by doing a few shout-outs. So let's get down to it. Do you like reading comic books? Are you a comic book artist or writer? Do you love discussing comic book movies and TV shows? Then the Irreverent Nerd podcast might be for you. Join co-hosts Richard and Will every Wednesday as they discuss these topics and more. You can also follow them on Instagram at irreverent_nerd. That's at IRREVERENT_nerd. See you around the Nerdverse, fellow humans. That's right, damn it. Don't you forget it. Those guys are pretty cool. I like talking to... I like talking. We had that episode where we talked about Iborg. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that was really cool. Can't wait to talk to them again.
Onwards and upwards. Set your favorites to... I'm not going to read this again. Come on. I read this script that I wrote last time, a few episodes ago. I figured it'd be cool, but nah. I'm going to talk about my current favorite podcast, which is Starship Tempest, which you can see on the screen here. Starship Tempest is a real play podcast set in the time between Kirk and Picard, where a group of friends stumble their way through their first role-playing campaign, going clumsily, if not boldly, where no one has gone before. Also, I have it on good authority that they just recently, during a vacation, learned how to play Dungeons and Dragons, which is kind of funny. It almost seems like backwards, doing it backwards. And I'm not saying that's like in a bad way or anything. It's just like, I guess for me, my first role-playing game was Dungeons and Dragons, like the red box, the original basic edition red box from the 1980s. And then you went on to play other role-playing games because D&D set the standard. Yeah. Now D&D is, of course, one of the oldest and greatest role-playing games, but it is certainly not the only one. So, that being said...
it's like learning to do tricks on a bike and then being like, oh... guess I should learn how to ride the bike, actually.
Exactly. Totally. Or like learning to ride a unicycle and then realizing, oh, I can ride a bike with more than one wheel. Or any other analogy you feel like. Yeah. So, anyways, if you love Star Trek and you love podcasts, and you love laughing your aft deck off, which I do, then check out Starship Tempest at starshiptempest.com or wherever you stream your podcasts. And also, don't be afraid to go over to Patreon and chip them a few bucks because these guys put in a lot of effort to put out a great product that's entertaining, and I just love it, if you haven't figured that one out. Moving on, certainly last but not least... the In Star Trek We Trust podcast. We came across these guys, again, it's like one of those things where you see it on social media and you're like, oh, I'm going to check this out. And, they're pretty cool. So basically they do like we do. It's a Star Trek podcast. They talk about different episodes of different shows. You can see them on Twitter at Star Trek We Trust, on Instagram at In Star Trek We Trust Podcast, and then you can also go and listen to their episodes at instartrekwetrust.fireside.fm. So go check it out. That being said, let's get down to the rat killing. Bye-bye. We're back. Oh, yeah. So, okay. We are going to talk about... Look, we got our special co-host, Ethan, back there. Say hey, Ethan.
Hi.
We are going to talk about probably one of the best, if not the best, in my opinion, episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds this season. It is the penultimate episode of Season 1. It is called All Those Who Wonder, and it basically grabs the steering wheel and yanks it. And I am being apparently told by my producer that I need to produce my thumbprint. So, what do we got here? Oh, this looks interesting.
Yes, I will kill people.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
Death incoming.
If this isn't unprofessional, I don't know what is. But you know what? He is the boss. Anyways. Yes, so back to what we were talking about. We are going to discuss the ups and downs, the sideways and the backwards of this incredible episode. And we're glad you're here along for the ride. So the episode is called Not Coughing. All Those Who Wonder. And it finds that the Enterprise gets a mission to go look for a missing Federation vessel, and what they find is no less than horrifying.
Yeah. It's
so
basically a horror episode.
Yeah, it basically is. Now, a lot of people, I'm seeing a lot of this on social media where people are saying, oh, it's just a ripoff of Aliens, and if that doesn't tell you what happens in the episode, then nothing ever will. But I disagree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
You could have similar episodic elements or similar story elements, and it still be a good enough different story. But let's face it, it preys on one of the most primal fears we have as humans, and that is being out of control with our bodies. And in this episode, the Enterprise was on its way to do a mission over at Starbase K7, which for anybody who is a Star Trek nut like I am, knows that Starbase K7 is also featured heavily in the original series episode, and also the DS9 tribute episode, The Trouble with Tribbles and Trials and Tribulations, where we get to hear that really awesome term, quadrotriticale, which is space wheat, I guess. But I digress.
Tongue twister.
So Enterprise is on their way there. They get diverted. Pike's like, look, I'm going to take a team, couple shuttles. We found the ship. Let's go check it out. You go on to the Starbase, and
He's like, nothing to worry about, just standard.
Yep. It's just a
away mission.
Yeah, it's just a smaller version of the Constitution class ship smacked into the planet. Nothing could be wrong here. Nah. Nobody's answering. Nobody's like, there's no automated distress beacons. There's nothing. Nah, everything's fine. Whatever. Man, Pike was just like, I bet you at the end of this episode, he was like, oh, shit. But in all seriousness, okay, we have this situation where the away team goes down. They are looking for life signs. They don't find any. They do find the ship. They are walking. They have to walk a couple kilometers to it because of anomalies in the planet surface. Keeps them from landing closer. Nice little story element. And they trundle across the ice, and Hemmer is he's on a high because he's like, it's just like Andoria. It's all cold and snowy. This is awesome, man.
He's like back at home.
Yeah. He's like, I don't even know why he bothered to wear a jacket. The dude's like, yeah, this is nice and brisk.
It's brisk, baby.
Yeah, so they go, they get into the ship. They
And
realize,
that's when the trouble happens.
yeah, they realize something's not right. They find a lot of bad
Blood.
stuff. With they find lots of blood. They find they find the captain's log after they're able to get after Hemmer and Uhura are able to get the power back on, so they can kind of look at stuff. And we find out that the Gorn, something happened with the Gorn. Somehow the Gorn got onto the ship. Now, forgive me on this one, and you'll have to kind of back me up on this one. I lost my hearing about a week ago. So trying to listen to the finer points of the episode was extremely difficult. And
That's closed captions is your best friend.
yeah, I had a bunch of people in the room with me as well, telling me that, trying to talk to me at the same time I'm trying to listen.
Oh.
So I got my ear like this, like, come on, shut up, I'm trying to listen.
I don't know why you would try and watch a show with other people in the room.
Yeah. Because I like to watch it with my wife, and it just so happened everybody else was there too. So,
Then
so
we'll watch it later.
yeah. So they do find two life signs on the ship. One ends up being like a human girl, and one ends up being some sort of like space pope guy.
Awesome looking alien. That
Yeah.
thing was so cool looking. The practical effects in this episode were totally amazing.
Well, yeah, and they actually said, I want to say when I was watching the Ready Room with Will Wheaton, that they mentioned that in a previous episode that the showrunners wanted the effects this season to be as practical as possible. Which then adds to that realism factor, when you see blood smeared on the window or on the wall, or it's sort of it's realistic looking. It's not CGI added in post production.
Or like seeing real creatures and stuff, real aliens.
Right, and then the aliens again, the cost, the makeup, and all that is real practical makeup, not anything CGI'd. They convince the guy, the alien guy, that hey, we're just here to help. He leads them to the little girl, and they're sitting in sick bay, and this dude starts to get really kind of agitated, and he's not feeling well, and he kind of falls to the ground and carks it. He croaks. Next thing you know, we get the chest burster scene where the baby Gorn, the eggs that had been implanted in him, mature and hatch, and they come out his chest and his stomach, and it's all nasty and yucky.
They came out of his back.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, sorry. And of course, everybody, like I see one of two things. I see people either talking about like the chest burster thing from Aliens, or they talk about the alien chest burster from Spaceballs. Where he comes out of the dude, and he's like puts on the hat.
Baby.
Hello, my baby.
Hello,
Hello,
my
my darling.
Yeah.
But those were like.
The thing that I would say to that is, where, like, if an alien laid eggs in you, where else would it be able to gestate? There's no other room in a body. It's not going to be in your head. It's not going to be in your legs. It's not going to be in the main place would be the person's torso. So it's got to be the place where it's going to burst out of, or
right. But and the thing is, they did a pretty good job of making it look nice and nasty, because it's all gooey.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing, is that like they're looking at the dude and they're pulling his thing off like that, or they're looking up his arm and they're seeing like these veins kind of pulsating, and it's like, ew, kind of. All right, dude. So we know something really bad's going to happen to you. And then we have the let's call it the backburster scene then, where the dude keels over and they burst out of him, and of course they take off. Now, again, there's a lot of comparisons to Aliens for obvious reasons, but one thing that's really kind of got me thinking is, how are they going to handle the Gorn as a going concern, going down the road? Because they've obviously made a lot of put in a lot of effort to make the Gorn the big bad of this season.
Yeah.
Which is it's interesting because we've never really seen the Gorn as the big bad ever. I mean, we've seen him a couple of times. The first, of course, being the iconic episode of the original series, Arena, where Kirk and the Gorn captain are forced to fight it out on Cestus 3. But, I mean, let's face it, that was a dude in a rubber suit. So he did, I mean, I'm sure he looked scary back in the 60s. Now he just looks campy and silly.
Yeah.
But they did bring the Gorn back a little bit. I want to say it was one of the episodes of Enterprise Season 4, one of the Inner Mirror Darkly episodes, where they deal with the Gorn, which looks very similar to what we see in Strange New Worlds. So that was a good, like a good little homage to what was already established.
Yeah. I like the way that it looks. It looks scary.
Yeah, and that's the thing is they intentionally had to make it scary. They changed it into this, this true reptilian, something
reptile.
Yeah, something that crawled and scraped and screeched and
immediately you're frightened of these things because the two of them burst out of the chest and one of them immediately attacks and kills
the other
one.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, these guys ain't messing around.
Yeah, they're totally not screwing around. And then I felt really bad. I really felt one of the officers gets promoted from ensign to lieutenant at the beginning of the episode, and he's the first one to die. I was like, he wasn't even wearing a red shirt. Like, what the, like, come on, man. It wasn't even like, why would you do that to a brother? Come on, man. He was wearing gold and everything. No, they killed him. But they did that whole jump scare thing where he gets dragged into the darkness and then eaten.
There's a few jump scares in this episode. It was cool.
Yeah, there are. Thinking about best parts of the episode. What would you say is to you was the best part of this episode?
I mean, obviously the Gorn, like seeing how cool they look, just seeing how like dangerous they are. I like one scene in particular I wrote down was just like, this is exciting. That was when they first discover, when Spock's like, or when they all first discover that the Gorn are on the ship, and they're just like, they start freaking out a little bit. It just seemed like super exciting. And
yeah. I can see that when you know who it was kind of hard not to know who the big bad of this episode was because it got spoiled pretty quickly. I think it may have even been spoiled in the trailer. So.
Oh, see, I didn't even know that they were going to be in this episode. That's the thing. I don't watch the trailers. And I like to go on them fresh, so I didn't even know that they were going to be in this episode.
That's one of my very few criticisms of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds is that they break tradition with the on the next episode of Star Trek: Strange New Worlds, the Gorn come and kick ass, or it is a Gorn buffet.
Oh, do they have that at the end of the episode?
No, well they don't. That's the thing is they purposely do not show the trailer or the teaser for the next episode, which is something that has traditionally been a Star Trek thing. I mean, it's a TV trope. On the next episode of insert title here, Captain Bob goes after enemy Captain Bill.
Which is good. I like being surprised. I don't want to know like what's coming up.
I don't know. I mean, I do kind of want to have a taste of what's coming up. I don't want to necessarily know the
they can do both. Go both ways.
Yeah, like I want to see a little bit of a taste of what's coming up because it just whets your chops and gets you talking about it and gets you thinking about it and you're like, yeah, and it builds that anticipation. Which again, if I had to actually come up with a criticism of Strange New Worlds, is the fact that they don't include it in the role at the end of the episode, and they don't even actually really make it even available right away on Paramount Plus. So, if you want to see it, you got to go to YouTube, or somebody at some point will post it to Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. For me, I think the best part of this episode, absolutely hands down, is when Hemmer, who had been previously attacked earlier in the episode, he got spit on by one of the Gorn. You thinking, oh, he's like, it burns. It's like, oh, that's their acid attack. He's, they're attacking him. Little did we know until the very end of the episode that dude had been impregnated with their eggs, and he knew it, because they realized that the best way to combat the Gorn was not with the energy weapons; it was with pure cold. They're reptilian. They don't react very well to cold, so they set up this trap to draw them into engineering, or is it engineering, or was it the shuttle bay? Might have been like a cargo bay, shuttle bay thing.
Yeah, it was some bay.
And they jump into these little capsule things while the Gorn are chasing them, and when they get close enough, they seal themselves inside, and they blast them with cold air, and they do the whole Terminator thing where they freeze solid, and then Lon comes out with a crowbar and beats the crap out of it until it smashes into frozen Gorn bits. But when they come out of it, and like immediately something's wrong with Hemmer, and you're like, oh no, what happened? And he's like, sorry, dude, they got me. You're like, no, not.
I was not expecting them to kill him off.
Yeah,
I did not see that coming.
Now I did see the what happened is, because it took so long for me to watch the episode, of course things got spoiled for me, and I just had to deal with it. But that being said, I did see an interview that Bruce Horak did with Will Wheaton for the Ready Room, and he talked about it. He goes, they told me from day one, Hemmer is not going to survive season 1. And he's like, well, all right, dude. All right, guys, if you're going to do that, please just make it cool. Whatever you do, just make it cool. And they did. Dude has a hero moment. He knows that if he lives, they live. Okay. So he walks, he says his goodbyes. He says goodbye to Uhura because he has been her mentor. He goes through the force field, stands on the edge of the shuttle bay ledge, and just does the Luke Skywalker thing where, like in Empire Strikes Back. By the way, spoiler, in Empire Strikes Back, when after he gets his hand cut off and Vader tries to convince him to come over to the dark side, he just drops off the platform and to fall, trying to seemingly fall to his death. Well, in this one, immediately, like as soon as he did that, I thought of the same thing. Hemmer just stands on the edge of it and just drops backwards, and it cuts to this wide shot of the back of the ship hanging over this cliff, and he's just God. He's just and I mean, for the first time this season, I was genuinely like, OMG, like holy crap, like I moved emotionally because of that, and I'm like, so somebody chopping onions in here. For me, I mean, the whole thing with Hemmer dying, sacrificing himself, for me, hands down, was the best part of the entire episode.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good scene.
What about worst? What about worst part of the episode for you?
Shoot, I really have to think about that because I can't think of anything that I didn't like about it.
I guess if can
you think of something?
if I'm drawing any kind of criticisms, I would say that the issue that presents itself is that I'm pretty sure that they had never laid eyes on a Gorn until that episode Arena. I didn't know. I mean, they didn't know who they were or what they were. In this episode, it was all about we know who you are, we know what they are, we know what they can do, and we know we're in deep doo-doo with these guys. So I guess
I read an interview with the showrunner, and they talked about that, or the writer of this episode, about how they're kind of breaking from canon, but that also in the episode with Kirk, it's only literally one line where Kirk says something like, he mentions like he's never heard of the Gorn or never seen the Gorn, but it's like that you could interpret it many ways. Like maybe it's just Kirk never seen or never read about them. Like he personally doesn't know about them. But then some people also mentioned, but then why wouldn't Spock and Uhura? They would know about the Gorn.
Okay, actually, and that actually brings up a good point. We were talking about things we like least about the episode. There is a bit where, for some reason, Spock has to let go of his emotional control, and he loses his shit. And I didn't really see where that fit into it. Like it was one of those things. Like, why? Why is this the way it is? Like, why did that happen that way? Did it make any real sense for him to have to do that? Like, do you remember? Do you remember in J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movie 2009? Yeah. The whole thing is, Prime Spock is telling, Kelvin versus Kirk. I just watched my planet destroyed, my mother killed. I'm emotionally compromised. You gotta make me do that, so I'll leave the bridge and give you control. And I'm like, did he have to do that? Was it really necessary? Did it serve a real purpose? Was it terrible? No. Was it necessary? I think also no. But again, there's small things. There's like small criticisms. And look, let's face it, okay? We are not Star Trek producers. We are not showrunners. We are not writers. We don't work for CBS or Paramount. We are not involved in the production. So what we are is we're armchair commentators when it comes to watching these shows. I mean, this is just the modern way of expressing our fandom. Oh, I don't like this, or I love that, or I don't like this, or I don't love that, and let's be fair. We are we're talking about opinions, and at the end of the day, is it going to affect my overall opinion of the show? Absolutely not. I think
it fits in a little bit. I mean, because he was already overly emotional. Like there was that scene where he's getting a little freaked out because he's looking in the tube and he's like bent down and he hears a noise and then someone grabs him from behind and he kind of jumps and it's like, so he's already at this heightened state.
But realistically, would he be?
He had to lure the Gorn.
Yeah.
So he had to do that primal scream and.
Right, and that's fine. I mean, being able to tap into that side of things to be able to, I guess, do what need to be done is fine. But again, what real purpose did him continuing to lose his shit serve in the episode? Anything? I don't know. I really don't know.
It comes into play later that we don't know of yet.
Yeah, I mean, this is a younger version of Spock. That he's a lieutenant. He's it's 10 years before we see him serving as Kirk's first officer and science officer. So I mean, again, it's artistic freedom. They can kind of run with it a little bit.
Maybe they did that because they're really pushing him and. What's her name's relationship?
Oh,
like, are
Christine
they going to
Chapel.
get together? Are they not? So maybe they needed a reason for her to hug him or them to be close. Another emotional scene between the two of them.
Well, and
maybe that's why they wrote that in.
Yeah, I mean, Jess Bush does a phenomenal job. She has succeeded Majel Barrett as Nurse Chapel phenomenally well. Her portrayal of the emotions that character feels for Spock, the whole thing is she does it so well that you feel for her. You feel for her unrequited love of this character. She knows that he's betrothed to Pring, yet it doesn't stop her from allowing those feelings for him to bleed out a little bit. And you're right. I mean, it did give them the ability to, I guess, show that relationship strengthening in some way, because ultimately we know in Amok Time, T'Pring is going to give him the boot. And at some point in the original series timeline, there will be some back and forth between the two characters. There will be some tension. Back in the 60s, they couldn't portray that sexual tension like they can now. Maybe it was just an opportunity for them to be able to have him have that outpouring so that she can latch onto it and do that.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, okay, fine. I can, whatever. It doesn't alter my opinion of the episode.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what are your overall thoughts of this episode and kind of how it fits into the, I guess, the overall feel of this first season?
Yeah, they're trying new things. They're trying different stuff. Each episode has like a whole different feeling. Like there's ones that are funny, and then there's ones that are drama, and there's ones that are action. This one's like horror and scary, and I love it. I love that they're trying new things and different things. Each episode's a whole different feel, a whole different mood, and it's fun.
Well, and
it's exciting.
Most people don't realize. Anybody who's watched the episode knows that we lost not one character this episode. We lost two. One to death and one resigned. La'an Noonien Singh decides to resign from Starfleet to I guess help rehabilitate the human survivor from the ship. And yeah, so we're now down two. And that was unexpected. I mean, look, Chrissy Chong is a really cool actress. She played that role really well, but I can kind of see why they didn't, bring her along for the long-term ride, because what could you do with it? Like, what could you do with this character? Maybe there could be a ton of stuff to do. I don't know.
Is she out? Is she not? She's not coming back again?
To my knowledge, she is not back. She's not coming back for season 2. Which, by the way, they did just wrap. Weird. They did a couple days ago. Did just wrap production on season 2. We know obviously Hemmer's gone. We knew, and
I wonder if there was like some behind the scenes stuff with her then, because that's so weird. Like to leave before the finale.
Well, and again, I think anybody who made it to the finale is largely going to be considered, if they survive the finale, they're going to be in season 2. So there's some characters that have to survive to maintain canon. Pike has to survive.
Well, we already know.
Uhura has to survive.
I mean, most of the main characters are
Spock has to survive. Yeah. Chapel has to survive. Those definitely have to survive. Now they're kind of talking about maybe this is going to be a way for, since Hemmer's gone, for them to introduce somebody to play the role of Chief Engineer Scott. Which I don't remember what the whole thing is about how long he's served on the Enterprise. I want to say that I think he was serving on Enterprise before Kirk took command. So we'll see how it goes. And the other thing is, we know that the character of M'Benga will survive, but I don't know how long he's going to be on the ship, because at some point Dr. McCoy will have to take over, because M'Benga took over for Boyce. Boyce was Pike's chief medical officer during the events of The Cage. Then Mbenga comes in. They bring him into this canon story, and then it's like I said, at some point they will replace him with Dr. McCoy, and then we'll be setting ourselves up for the original series cast, or at least the original series characters. We know that Kirk shows up next season.
Oh, jeez.
So, yeah. Anyways, that being said, probably one of the best episodes of the season.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it was, again, it made you feel that tension. No matter, even though I had been spoiled part of this episode, I still felt the tension of what was coming. And that being said, it just keeps me engaged, keeps me interested, keeps me wanting to come back for more. That being said, the next episode, which will be the finale of this first season, which is called, I believe, is
what they're gonna do.
I think it's a Quality of Mercy, and from what I can tell, we get the Romulans back.
Oh snap!
And I'm like, okay, how are we gonna do this? Because see, the whole Romulan thing has been a big canon thing for me ever since because my favorite episode of the original series is Balance of Terror, where humans see the Romulans for the first time and see that they are genetic cousins of the Vulcans, which then seeds distrust in the Vulcans for a bit, because they look, they're ancestral cousins, they must be working together, so it's their fault, and Mr. Spock is a spy, and blah 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 blah. But they did also bring the Romulans into Star Trek Enterprise, and they did a really good job because they never showed their faces. The story is that during the Earth-Romulan War, which took place in the late 22nd century, everything, like all communication between the two sides, was through subspace radio. They never saw them. And when Enterprise did it, they skirted the line a little bit, but they stayed far enough away that it didn't interfere with established canon. I want to see what they do with this upcoming episode. I think it's going to be phenomenal. And the cool thing is, since we are recording this on Tuesday night, that means that new episode is 2 days away. Unfortunately, I will be traveling during that entire time. So hopefully I can watch it while I'm traveling. I don't know yet, but I'm really excited.
Yeah, I can't wait.
That being said, I think we're going to wrap it up here. As always, I want to thank everybody who watches these episodes, who comments, who shows their support and their love, everything. One thing I don't normally do is I don't really hawk our stuff while we're talking. However, I'm going to change the script a little bit this time and ask you if you can see down here. See down here, right along here. You see our social medias. You see Treknicity at Instagram, Redshirt Geeks on Twitter, Redshirt Geeks on Facebook, the Redshirt Geeks on Twitch.
Nice. Please
go and check out our other shows, our Redshirt Geek shows. Patrick does the Old Men Gaming throughout the week, and I team up with him on usually on Sundays, where we have been currently playing Star Trek Online, which has been a lot of fun. But please do check us out. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave comments. Let us know if you have any questions, you want to talk, anything else to talk about. If you like something, don't like something, talk to us, tell us, and we will certainly do our best to accommodate. That being said, I will give you one heads up after next episode. So episode 16 of season 4 of Treknicity will be the last one for this season. We're going to take a break since Strange New Worlds wraps up, and it's going to be a little bit before we see any more Picard or Lower Decks or Discovery or Prodigy. We're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to gather our forces and prep for the next season.
Stronger.
Yeah. So we'll come back for season 5 and hopefully rock and roll. That being said, thank you very much for joining us here on this episode of Treknicity. We have been your gracious and loving hosts. I'm Lars.
Brandon.
And we will see you next time. And also, to remember, rock out, which is Spock out. Right. See you, folks.
Thank you.